I spoke to a group of over 12 SDRs today in my company, so believe me, this information you're going to hear in this video is fresh and super relevant and going to help you set more meetings on the phone and find more success in your sales job. Leading up to this team meeting, the team leader reached out to me and said, "Hey Trent, I noticed that you've been having a lot of success recently, been averaging about 200% of my quarterly quota. You promoted from an SDR to an account executive. Can you come speak to my team on all things prospecting?" And I said, "Absolutely. What about prospecting are they struggling with?" He said, "Look, they're not calling. They're sending auto emails. They're not making their calls." And I said, "Well, why aren't they making their calls?" He said, "Well, it's summer time frame. People are out of the office. They're going on vacation. People are working remote. They've caught on to our prospecting tactics and nobody's answering the phone anymore." And I said, "Got it. I know exactly what to say." I show up to the meeting today and I say, "Look, if you're not where you want to be, only 50% of you are hitting quota. If you're not where you want to be, you got to go make more calls. It's as simple as that." Anytime you think that there's a problem, such as, "Hey, it's almost 4th of July. Maybe it's a Friday afternoon. I'm not going to call." Anytime you think, "Oh man, I don't have a direct line. There's a gatekeeper." Anytime you think that there's a problem, that's a problem. And for those of you who have been watching my channel for a while, we make daily sales videos talking all things prospecting, promoting from SDR to an AE, how to find more success sooner rather than later. And some of you may be thinking this message is repetitive. And by thinking that this message is repetitive and that you don't need to make your calls, that's an issue. I'm here to tell you that cold calling is never going away. The best advice I ever got is when I first started in software sales, I didn't like to call. They said, "Trent, you sound like a used car salesman. You talk too fast. You're not making any sense." And I said, "You're right. I got to get better." So rather than avoiding cold calling, I said, in order to get more of what I want out of life, I need to get better at cold calling and I need to make more cold calls. So I have a list of 10 cold calling principles that I've learned from making over 40,000 cold calls. If you work in sales, if you work in software sales, this will be especially relevant. If you're in general sales, these cold calling principles are universal and will help you set more meetings on the phone. I'd love to hear about your progress. I've had so many people reach out to me on LinkedIn and say, "Trent, I just started as an SDR. I listened to your video. I'm setting more meetings." And I guarantee if you've watched this video and write down at least a couple of these principles and then start applying them today. The time you're watching this video, go make calls and go start doing these. Write these down and think about what is your approach and then what can you change, because it's all about adapting. It's all about getting better. And that's how you stay relevant and top of mind in sales. Make sure to hit the like button below on this video. It takes 1 second. I'll wait for you now. Okay, thanks for doing that. And subscribe to the channel. We got a lot of great sales videos on the way and I want to help you and I'd love to hear from you as well. So make sure to subscribe to join this journey now. Top 10 cold calling principles, starting with number 1. What you say isn't as important as how you say it. Tone, pitch, inflection, taking pauses are all really important. That wasn't a glitch. That was a natural pause. When you're making cold calls, you got to use tone, pitch, inflection. You got to use upward inflections and you got to use downward inflections. You got to mix things up. You got to stay relevant and you got to keep people engaged and retained into your message. By making these videos each and every day, it's really helped me in my sales job, because when I get on a demo, I start letting it rip. But on a cold call, you have even less time. So you need to be captivating and you need to recognize that even if you don't know what you're saying or what you're doing, just get on the phone and start practicing and start making your ask. Cold calling principle number 2, and this plays right into number 1, is if the call feels rushed, it's you who are rushing the call. When I first started cold calling, something I really struggled with was when I got someone on the phone and say, "Yeah, Trent, yeah, that sounds great. Hey, I'm about to run into it." When they start to say things like that and trying to rush you off, you can feel their urgency. You just got to slow down and be like, "Hey, yeah, it's great to hear from you. I'm doing really well today." Control the pace. Think about LeBron James. Think about James Harden. When they're playing basketball, they have the ball, and one of their key attributes is being able to control the tempo of the game. You as the cold caller must control the tempo. You must control the pace. Never rush the call. And if you feel rushed at any point, it's you who are rushing the call, because you control the pace. Do not rush the call. Cold calling principle number 3 is always work in the phrase, "The reason I'm calling you is." You don't need to watch an endless video saying, "How to nail the first 15 seconds of a cold call, cold calling script, blah, blah, blah." There's a lot of things out there. This is universal. This works. Believe me. Start off the call. "Hey, Susan, how are you doing?" "Great." "Well, hey, the reason I'm calling you specifically is, and the reason you work in that phrase is we as humans naturally want to understand, who is this person? What do they want? Why are they cold calling me? And ultimately, why are we here? So you got to give them that right off the bat. And what I want to do is take a quick pause in this video as soon as my background loads here. So look at this. What I want to say, and this is a bonus cold calling principle. We're taking a little break. I wanted to show this to you guys. Mindset today. That's a hunter right there. As a cold caller, you eat what you kill. There's so many reps that start that think, well, I need to rely on outbound and inbound SDRs. I need to rely on the partner ecosystems to source my pipeline. Anytime you start thinking that you need to rely on other people for your pipeline, that's going to be a problem, and that's going to hold you back. I think about sales that I'll generate all my own pipeline. So adopt a hunter mentality, and I just wanted to say that as a bonus tip. Cold calling principle number 4 is always make the ask for their time. If you find yourself making a lot of calls, and you're not necessarily setting meetings, look at what are you actually saying. Because something I ran into early on was that I would have calls, I would carry on, and then I would reach a certain point where it got awkward or I wasn't going anywhere. And it was because I wasn't making the ask for their time. The purpose of a cold call is to get them to buy into your message initially and then get them to agree to your time. That's it. Bottom line, you are calling to get them to agree to more time. You don't need to give them all the answers on that call. They don't need to necessarily know what's going on. You just got to call them and say, hey, this is why this matters to you. Let's take 20 minutes to talk about it. Make the ask for their time. You always need to be clear on your ask, because if you don't even know what you want, then you're never going to get it, because they're not going to be able to give it to you out of the blue. You got to make the ask for their time. Cold calling principle number 5 that plays into making the ask for their time, make sure to convey why it matters to them. Rather than just saying, and I see this all the time, hey, I want to set up time with you. Hey, I believe it makes a lot of sense to talk with me. And this plays into emails as well. Hey, it sounds like XYZ is a priority for you. Let's find time later this week to talk about how my company will help you improve your business. What's your availability on XYZ day? Convey what's in it for them with the ask. Don't just make a backhanded ask as to why you care. Tell them why they should care to further reinforce your ask and improve your probability of getting what you want. Cold calling principle number 6 is that you got to sound like you actually care to be there. At the end of the day, you're calling humans, you're calling other people. You're not just calling digital names on a screen. And that's why when I see these people that have these cold calling systems that call for them and they make hundreds of calls a day, that doesn't make any sense to me. That's just numbers. That's just technology. Cold calling, you should know who you're calling. You should know the reason you're calling them. And when you are calling them, aside from setting the meeting, try and make their day better. Try and sound happy. Try and add them some value. Know that you're doing your job, they're doing their job, and you're trying to add more value to their job so that they can get promoted and so that they can improve their business. Bring that happiness, that cheerfulness into the call. And I see this all the time with people who are making the calls, and I'm like, I wouldn't want to talk to that guy because he doesn't sound like he cares to be there. Sound like you care to be there, and trust me, just by caring a little bit more than other people, that will help set you apart. Cold calling principle number 7, make your calls every day, no matter what. I had a really busy day today. I did a team training, I had important customer calls, and I still made time to cold call on top of trying to generate revenue. Make your calls every day. Prioritize a block and make your calls. Don't worry about how long it's going to take. Just sit down, make your calls. It honestly feels a bit therapeutic for me. Make your calls every day, no matter what. You don't need to make 100 calls unless you should be, like I did, but make your calls. Number 8 is separate yourself from the outcome. It's easy to get wrapped up in how the call goes, positively or negatively. If the call goes well, celebrate your wins, but ultimately recognize that that's just a meeting. You got to go set more meetings. If the call goes poorly, if you get hung up on, if they say something mean, that happens. Separate yourself from the outcome and don't get too emotionally invested into what they actually say. Cold calling principle number 9. Listen to other people's calls. This is really important, especially for new reps. Identify who are the top reps and go listen to their calls. Either set up time with them and say, hey, let's have a cold call block together. Or if you have some sort of system like Outreach, go into your platform and listen to their calls. Cold calling principle number 10. And this is the best one. So if you're still listening to this point, I want you to comment the phone emoji, the red phone emoji. Comment it as many times as you want, because if you're listening, this is the most important advice. If there's any takeaway, this is important. Cold calling principle number 10, make more calls than everybody else. The quickest way to set yourself apart, the quickest way to become an overnight success, and if you want to guarantee you hit your quota, make more calls than everybody else. Early on, I realized I wasn't naturally the best. I didn't know what I was doing. I had never done this before. So what did I do? I said, okay, I can control my effort and I can control my attitude. So I'll show up every day, care to be there, and make more calls than everybody else. That's all you got to do. As an account executive, I'm struggling with that a little bit because I'm not quite as efficient or able to prioritize or organize my time as I would like. But as an SDR, as a BDR, there's no excuse why you shouldn't be making the most calls. If you don't make the most calls, or at least try to, that just means that somebody else cares more. And if somebody else cares more, that's fine. Everyone has different goals. But if you want to be hitting your number, if you want to be a top performer, if you're not where you want to be, then the quickest remedy is to go make more calls. It's as simple as that. Thanks so much for watching this video here today. If you learned something new, if you enjoyed the content, if you feel a little refreshed, if you're ready to make some calls, make sure to smash the like button. That is step number 1. Hit the like button and then go make some calls afterwards. I will see you in the next video.